We are streaming simultaneously on 3 platforms. So for those moderators out there, if you can check your feeds and just let us know what you can hear, what you can see, and that would be phenomenal if you can do that for us. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. And all right. Okay. So everybody can see and everybody can hear. For those of you that are live on Zoom with me, just put a 1 in the chat for me so that we know that you can hear us. And for those of you that are out there on YouTube, as you come into the room, just go ahead and put a 1 in the chat so that we can make sure that you can hear us and that you can see us. Okay, perfect. All right, cool. YouTube is up and TikTok is up. And then we have another YouTube channel running at the same time. All right, let me just check one thing here. Check one thing here. This is a all right. Thank you all for taking the time out to join us this evening as we enter into another Genesis Gateway discussion regarding the financial woes of Babylon, right? And this topic is a hot topic because there's a lot of issues out there that are currently plaguing people, things that people are trying to get past, things that people are trying to accomplish. So, we're doing these calls to provide people with clarity, enlightenment, and information that they can take and utilize in real time. All right, so the Genesis Gateway Roundtable discussions are being facilitated by a conglomerate of beneficial owners who partner with you to bring you some education, right? So, whatever information you hear on these calls, you are solely responsible for how you take and choose to implement or utilize the information that we're sharing. We are held harmless from any actions that arise as a result of the information you hear. And just know by entering into this call, you are subject to a trust relationship, right? Everything that we do is by way of a trust relationship. All right, so nice to have you all on the call this evening. Thank you so very much for joining. Tonight, we're going to be talking about uh, generational and financial trauma as it relates to foreclosures and title confusion. There are a lot of people that's losing their houses. There are a lot of people that are struggling right now financially. And I know right now, this particular time of the pagan year, the holiday year, is where a lot of people are feeling down and out. They're feeling depressed, even though we're not supposed to be celebrating these holidays, right? They're not even scripture. But to say the least, this is all that people know. And so many people, they do what they can, they make what they can, and they try to bring about relief and remedy for themselves in the midst of Babylon, which is literally the definition of confusion. So this entire series is centered around the financial woes of Babylon, the system that is set up to oppress, depress, literally dupe you, and extract from your estate and those values that belong to you, but you don't necessarily know how to go about claiming them, right? So this is the platform that we're going to be on up until the pagan February the 1st. So we have approximately 6 sessions left. And I think we've done 6 or 7 of these already. So we've been on the run for the past few weeks. And after February the 1st, we're going to transition over to another subject matter. There's so much to talk about in this financial space, when you're providing um, trying to provide information to people and them solutions and open up their way of thinking. This is literally a lifelong study. So without that being said, with any further to do, I'm going to go ahead and pass the platform over to Mikhail. Are you there? Can you hear us? Are you there? Can you hear us?
Peace and love. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right. Okay, hold on one second. We're getting some feedback. Okay. Can you all hear me still?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm sorry. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. I was getting a little bit of feedback on my system. Had to take care of that real quick, but the floor is yours.
Uh, Good evening, everyone. You have to excuse me this evening. My voice is kind of hoarse. Still trying to get over um, some an illness that kind of been dealing with last week and a half or so. But the topic, today and what we're here for, um, there's a lot of people that are looking for answers. They want to know why. Why am I going through this? What did I do wrong? And they're still losing their homes. Foreclosure is a process that's created by the lender to extract the home from the existing homeowner so they can repackage and sell the house all over again. And of course, they don't care what happens to the homeowner. That's not their concern. And they believe that legally it's not their responsibility. But so many people today are going through this process, and today you're talking about millions of people today across the country dealing with the same issue, foreclosure. There are so many court cases right now today on the local district level, all the way up to federal. Foreclosure is the main court case right now, and everybody's moving in the same direction, and they are losing as well because they don't understand the mortgage situation, the securities that are associated with the mortgage. The entire process has never been explained to them, and yet they're trying to figure it out by following the wrong people. And those people don't know, and so they don't know. And it's leading them right off the edge of the cliff, losing their home, their family home, and having to find somewhere else to live um, is just tearing families apart. And the lenders don't think there's anything wrong that they did on their part to cause this. I talk to people every single day about this, and they are struggling, trying to figure out why this happened, what can they do, and they're everything that they're doing is not working. It may delay the foreclosure from going through or the sale from being processed on the home, but it's not stopping it. It is definitely not stopping it. And so many people, because they have gone through a foreclosure, maybe filed bankruptcy, still lost a home, they are very leery of going back out into the market to buy a home. They have found themselves just accepting that they're going to have to rent a home or an apartment the rest of their life. It is very sad that this has taken place over and over and over again, and there is no answer out here in the public for millions of people who are dealing with this. At a time, there was a point in time where I could see 60, 70, 80,000 foreclosures in one state, 30, 40,000 in another state, 20,000 in another state across the country on a month-to-month basis. So this is something that's definitely going to need to be addressed in a way that's going to help the people. So keep in mind that there are answers, but those answers are not out here in the public on social media. In these groups on social media, they don't have the answer. It sounds good on the outside, but it lacks substance on the inside. And so they won't be successful as you move in that direction. Nadiva, did you have anything to share on that?
Well, when you think about foreclosure, it is the process that these lenders bring forth is literally it's like a machine. It's a well-oiled machine, right? And so you have to ask yourself a question: how do you go up against the machine to fight the issue of foreclosure, and then also any sort of title confusion, improper assignments, all of those quote unquote legal arguments that people have argued over the decades trying to save their houses, right? And so foreclosure, um, it's an enforcement machine, but many people try to come in and argue the position of fraud. That is the underlying argument that many people come with because that's literally the only thing that they can sort of kind of pinpoint. But here's the thing with that argument. There are two issues with that, actually more than two, but the two main issues is that you have to have the ability to prove fraud. You have to be able to prove it. How do you substantiate 100% what it is that you're saying on that paper that you submit into the court record, right? And number two, how can you win the legal argument in their arena using their tools, their codes, and their statutes up against this foreclosure enforcement machine, if you will, right? It's like an enforcement machine, and so there are a lot of people that have been able to successfully beat a foreclosure on the legal side. We're not saying that those people are not successful, but you have to be very well versed and we're very well studied in legalese, right? And legalese is a language in and of itself, and you have to have diligent study over the years to really be able to step into that courtroom and argue, right? And so many people do not have the fortitude or the aptitude to be able to do that, right? They're dependent on some sort of process that was just given to them that they think that they can follow step by step and that's going to miraculously help them to save their house from foreclosure. It doesn't work that way, right? And so foreclosure has been one of the things that's been plaguing society for years. It's been plaguing society. And so you can be in a house for 15 years and all of the mortgage payments that you would have made over the last 15 years into that house to build up the equity, you lose it in an instant and when a foreclosure sale happens. So there are certain questions that you have to ask yourself up front. What is your position in that transaction? That's number one. Who are you? Because if you go in from a debtor creditor perspective, you've already lost. The second question you have to ask yourself, how do you secure the equity that you have paid into that house over the last 15 years or however long you've been in that house? How can you keep from losing the equity that has been built up in that house over time, right? So position and standing is the most pivotal thing that one has to look at as it relates to a foreclosure, because when you signed on the dotted line, you are the source that literally activated all of the values associated with that contract, right? So that's what I just wanted to touch on really quick for you. And these are some questions we'll delve into a little bit later for answers, because I want to hear from the audience too on those 2 points. Right? So when you're looking at a foreclosure, and many people like to bring forth the element of securitization, right? Okay, but how is knowing that the loan has been securitized, how is that going to help you beat the case? Because just knowing is not enough. What do you do with the securitization audit? So let me hear from the audience on TikTok, on YouTube. What are some of the things that you will do to utilize your securitization audit? What would that look like? How would you work with that with the case? I'm just curious to know some of the strategies that you all have done out there, or what are your thoughts, even if you haven't done it yourself or you've seen somebody fight a foreclosure. How have you seen people utilize a securitization audit? Because I'm asking because that is one of the first things that people will do when they go to fight a foreclosure. They'll get a securitization audit. Okay, but how do you use that? What would you do with it? Let's see if there's any comments out here. Moderators, if you can just let us know the comments that you're seeing out there on YouTube. That would be great. And those of you that are following on TikTok, how exactly would you utilize a securitization audit? And let me say this. It doesn't even have to be for a foreclosure. That's just an example. If you were to go and obtain a securitization audit on any other account that you have, doesn't have to be a foreclosure, how would you utilize that if you're being sued? Whether it's a foreclosure, auto loan repossession, a credit card, um, a bank account that you had a negative balance and the bank account closed, but we know that the account is still open, right? Because it's never really closed. How would you go about utilizing a securitization audit in those instances? And I want you all to really think about this, right? You have something in your hand that could potentially be used as a tool, but how do you go about using it? How? What do you all think? What do you think? What values are associated with that audit? What values are associated with that case, court case? What values are associated with that account? Who do those values belong to? Do they belong to the lender? Do they belong to you? How would you put that together to beat the case?
Well, someone who's unlearned would think that the value is tied to the mortgage payments that they've made over the last 7, 8, 10, 12 years. And that's important that they, ask the right questions to understand, what do you mean value? I
Mhm.
know I made mortgage payments for 8 years, so that's my value. I know I have equity in the home. They're using these public terms uh, to get satisfaction or to win or to gain control of whatever the entity is. If it's a home, and they're moving from that perspective because they don't know, they don't have any other perspective to act on. So understanding what does value mean? What do you mean value? You mean the mortgage payments I made, or you mean the equity in the home? You know, it's different perspectives there. When you're dealing with, say a foreclosure example, or even another account, but a foreclosure example, which is very, you know, out there right now. This is what everybody's dealing with. You look at the value. What is the value? What do you mean value? I know I made mortgage payments. I know that the value of the property went up, so I have equity there. You're talking about that value, or you're talking about the value that I put into it, the mortgage payments I made. We want to kind of look at that because everybody's on a different page when it comes to the value.
True. That is true because many people don't even realize that outside of the mortgage payments, just like you said, there's something else happening. And that's part of the reason why I brought up the securitization audit because when you're dealing with an account, here's the golden rule, and I'll just give this to you all so that you're aware. Um, if there's a number associated, it doesn't matter what the number is. It really doesn't matter. Um, if there is a number, there is an associated QSIP associated with that number. And so what is a QSIP? The QSIP is a 9-digit identifier that is connected to the securities associated with that account. So if there is a number, so now people may be thinking, oh, wait a minute, I have a lot of numbers. There's numbers. Everything is attached to a number, whether it be the driver's license, a bank account, a credit card, a loan, a mortgage, whatever the case may be, student loans. If there is a number, there is a corresponding QSIP to that number. So now that you have a little bit more context, if you were to obtain a securitization audit on the QSIP number, how would you go about utilizing that audit or that report in a court case? How would you do that? And this doesn't have anything to do with the payments and everything that you've made. First, let me ask you this. Do you even believe that any values are supposed to come back to you in the first place? Because, Mikhail, you did mention that there may be a lot of people out there that just simply don't know. They just don't know
They don't
because
know.
they're right. They're plugged into this system. System
Yeah.
tells you, sign a contract, you're obligated, you signed over a security interest, and because you did that, you're obligated to pay. But they don't advise you that there's anything happening on the back end of that transaction.
Well, I try to explain it to people in a way where they can kind of start to connect some dots because it's accounting. It's accounting 101. And it's two sides to the ledger. And a lot of people today, if you have purchased a home, then you know you have to be able to balance your checkbook or balance your accounting of what comes in and what's going out and make sure everything is balanced. So when you look at a mortgage, when you have closed on a home, that's a accounting transaction. And you have to know that there's two sides to that accounting transaction. You're only aware right now, initially, that there's only one side, and that is the debt side. And that's what you focus on. When your entire life, you knew there was two sides to the ledger. You've been running a household where it's two sides to the ledger, what's coming in and what's going out, but you've never connected the dots to say, hold on, if there's two sides, then what does the other side of this mortgage look like? I don't see that, but I know it's there. And so we have to really take someone from where they are, their own understanding that's not going to work, and kind of open up the picture to them so they can see that, oh, there is another side to this mortgage that I was never informed of. Now, of course, the lender is not there to educate you, which means that you have to find your education elsewhere. But yet you've already gone into this contract agreement and signed the name of the estate and given them a blank endorsement. And now you're losing your home and you're wondering what's going on. And now you're trying to play catch up. And hopefully you run into the right individuals or the right entity that's going to educate you on what's really happening on the other side of the ledger when it comes to a mortgage or an account. Because any account is going to have two sides, it has to balance out. And you cannot have a debt without a credit. As soon as you create the debt, the credit is also created simultaneously. But they don't want you to know about the credit that's created simultaneously. They want you to focus on the left side, the left hand, the debt. Focus on that, not on the credit. So a lot of people go into this blindly. They have no clue what's going on when they go out there, create an account, buy a house, buy a car. They don't know. They're not educated enough. And that's why they're considered an incompetent minor. And so because of that ignorance, and we're all guilty of it at one time or another because we haven't all been awakened immediately. Somewhere down the road, we woke up and realized something is not right. So as an incompetent minor, this places the lender in control of the credit that's also associated with the debt on the other side of the ledger. So there's pieces of information that we're discussing this evening that you may have never heard about. An audit. How do you get an audit? I found out about the audit back in 2007, 2008, that there is an audit that you can do on an account, on a mortgage. And when I found out about it and I got a chance to see it, it was eye-opening. But that was my first time even realizing that there was an audit that could be done on a mortgage, on an account. And that was around the same time that I went to the investment world. I knew CUSIPs, started to see how CUSIPs are tied to accounts. And so a mortgage account is tied to a CUSIP, which is associated with securities. So everybody has to go through a learning stage to know what's really going on. The question for most is, do you have the time to figure all that out at the last minute when you're dealing with a foreclosure? No. So those who, of course, may have closed on a home within the last 6 months to a year, this is information you need to know and you need to put in action now. But of course, you think you got all the time in the world and you'll wait till the last second as well. Someone told me, but I didn't listen. I was too busy doing this and that and the other. So an audit is going to be very important. It's going to give you a lot of information on an audit, but do you know what to do with it?
I was just about to say, because I haven't seen any responses come in from anybody who's watching online or YouTube in terms of how they would utilize that audit. So that tells me that people simply they just don't know, which is okay. They just don't know. And so there's more education that needs to take place. But here's the thing. What if you didn't have to specifically know how to use the audit? What if you could plug into a system that would analyze the audit for you and spit out the process necessary to move forward with your enforcement machine up against their enforcement machine? What if you had access to something like that? What would you do? How happy would you be to know that you can literally collapse the time frame and accelerate your level of understanding just by simply plugging into the right system? So people can go out and they can get an audit all day long. And you all have proven to me that many people just simply don't know how to use it. They just don't know how to use it. But there are people that do know what to do with those audits. We know. We know what to do with those audits. We know how to put the system together. We know how to put a package together that goes out to a lender. We know how to identify those parties to the securitization that's going to pay attention to your packet when it hits their desk. We know how to put these things together. Many people don't. And I know people out there struggling with court cases and foreclosures, because if you weren't, you would not be on this call. Wouldn't be watching on TikTok. You wouldn't be listening on YouTube. So we know that there are issues out there. People are just not speaking up about those issues. We know that those issues exist. This is a machine that's created to pull you into these issues, right? So again, I'll ask the question, even for you all that are on the Zoom call, what would you do if you had access to a system that could analyze your audits for you? What would you do? How happy would you be? These are real issues that people are struggling with, and this is tying us back into the financial woes of Babylon. This is what we're here for, the financial woes of Babylon, and they are many, 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 many woes that are plaguing the people. Many woes. And so these are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. What would we do? How would we handle this? Now, I don't know if many of you are aware that we have released, and the links are floating around right now because we've been sending out email blasts and we have been sending out text messages regarding the free resources that are available to folks. Right. So, how many of you, especially those that are watching on TikTok, have signed up for the free course that was released a couple of weeks ago regarding the Noelle prosecuting? How many of you have not signed up for the free course that's going to literally walk you through on how to get your court case dismissed? Okay, so that tells me that all of you all are in the course. Okay, that's a good thing because that type of information is okay. So this person says, I haven't, I am new. Okay, healthy herb diet. Go ahead and send me, let me see. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link inside of the chat here. Give me just a second. You all are going to want to go ahead and sign up right now while we're on this call. So let's go ahead and get you all that link. And we'll also make sure that that link is dropped on YouTube for those of you that are watching. Now, here's the thing. It's a free resource that's available to you all to literally learn how to deal with your court case. It's going to help you become more confident. You're going to become empowered, and you're going to know exactly what to do, right? You'll know exactly what to do, but understand that this is just part one of many parts. Hold on just a second here. I'm going to drop this link in the chat. And while I'm doing that, do you all have any questions that you want to ask? Any questions at all regarding what we've covered or any comments regarding what we have covered? Any questions at all? Okay, I'm coming. I'm going to get you situated. I'm getting you the link right now. Just grabbing it for you. And here it comes. And you want to go ahead and sign up while you are on the call. Let's see here. Still trying to figure out how to work this. Okay, you should be able to see that now. Go ahead and click that link. Go ahead and click that link. And you can go ahead and get enrolled right now. And so if I see your name on TikTok, I should be able to see that you've enrolled in the course in real time. All right, and so Mikael, we have a question in the chat. It says, can you please explain more about the credit side of an account that we don't know about?
Yeah,
Mikael, you
sorry
there?
about that. Yeah, I want to
Okay,
make
thank
sure
you.
that you can actually hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
You know, it's important that we do understand that there's not a debt without a credit. When you look at the credit side of an account, if you are considered an incompetent minor, then that discussion is off the table. That's going to be important for you to know initially. So as an incompetent minor, the credit side is not your responsibility because you are coming in to this scenario as a minor. And so the credit side is basically left to a trustee, someone who can oversee and be responsible for the credit side of the transaction. You know, most of you won't learn that initially. There's some education that goes along with that as well that you need to really dive into to really know what is happening on the other side of the transaction, or the credit side of that transaction. Um, Many people can explain that slightly differently, but when it comes to accounting, we know it's two sides. We know that they have to balance. And I use as an example, when I was a child, we would go to the park, and in the park there was this one um, uh, piece of equipment that we would get on. It's called a teeter totter, and I use that in accounting and investing to help people understand. Um, when it comes to two sides, there's always one side is going to be up and one side is going to be down, but you want to balance those out. Normally, you're focused on one side, which is the debt side, as opposed to the credit side of the transaction. And so now the credit side is handled by a trustee that steps in, and they focus on moving the credit away from the owner of that credit, which is you. And they want you to focus solely on the debt as opposed to the credit. Because had you known there was a credit uh, as well available to offset the debt, of course you would have asked, how do I utilize that credit or leverage that credit to offset the debt? But of course, they don't want you to do that. They don't want you to know about that. Why? Mainly because there's so much compound interest that they are receiving on this contract, on this loan, that they don't want you to know about the credit, because they are profiting not only the credit, but the compound interest that you are uh, paying as well. As people normally know, when you close on a home, you're basically paying interest for 10 plus years. It's just the interest. It's not really too much going to the principal at all. So think about the compound interest that they are receiving from you as a incompetent minor. Why would they ever want to uh, reveal to you that there is a credit side to the ledger? And of course, we can't see the accounting that they have. And a lot of homeowners today dealing with foreclosure, they're trying to request a copy of the accounting, the gap accounting, and they never receive it. Why do they never receive a copy of the gap accounting? Because they're not in the right position. They don't have the status. They're not operating from a trust perspective. There's so many things that have to be in place before you can ever think about receiving a copy of the accounting. They will never want you to see that, because then the truth is uncovered and you start to see what's really going on, and you start to see the real numbers. That's why an audit is also very important as well. All right. That answers your question, but we can go deeper into that understanding about this credit, uh, because that credit is available to you as the original investor. You are the original investor. If it wasn't for your signature on the documents, they wouldn't be collecting the interest. They wouldn't be creating securities. You follow me?
Right.
All this is due to you. You have really enriched their life because of your signature, which was a blank endorsement, but it never told them who you are. When you come to a blank endorsement, all you did is write down the name of the estate. It didn't represent you, the living man or living woman. You didn't tell them who you are. So there are different steps that you want to start to take if you're thinking about purchasing a home. And a real estate agent can't educate you on this whatsoever. It's not her job. She is not equipped. And no one else from the lender's side of the table is going to educate you either. So your education has to come outside before you get to the closing, outside of a university, because a university will not teach you, educate you either before you go to a closing.
Oh, that is awesome. We had some individuals sign up for the course right on the call. You all are going to be edified by the information that's in this course. Welcome in. Welcome, welcome. And also, let me see. All right. Okay. Yep. We see you. Good for you all for moving forward. Education is key. Got to get that education underneath your belt to be able to know what to do. That I signed up, I sent in my request. And just bear with us because, TikTok is still a little bit foreign to me, to us, and going live. So we're just testing it out. Oh, you're all praises to the Most High. All praises to the Most High. So, like we said earlier, the reason why we're here is to help assist in the process of people being edified, you know, so that people can move forward with no confusion, because there is a lot of confusion and information out here, and people really need to see where it is that they stand in their process, and they definitely need to know who they are. And so, learning this type of information is a lifelong journey, not something that you're ever going to cut off because there's never too much information to learn. And so, we have to hold fast to that which is true and essentially get rid of anything that's not true, but we have to establish that foundation. And so, the reason why we're here is to help people establish a firm foundation. So, you want to get connected, definitely want to take advantage of the free resources. And let me go ahead and drop this other link so that you all can get connected with that. Because there are some other free resources out there that you can take advantage of. And if you all are watching on YouTube, you definitely want to get back with the channel administrator that you're connected with at the moment. Just go ahead and send them a message. You should be able to click on their main YouTube channel page in the About section, and you should see an email address. If you're not connected to, if you're not on the actual Zoom call, and if you're not following on TikTok and you're on YouTube, and you haven't connected with us in any other way, shape, or form, just go ahead and send a message to the channel administrator, and let them know that you want to gain access to the free course, and they'll go ahead and respond back to you with that information. All right, but hold on a second, and I'll go ahead and get this going here. And while I'm doing that, any other comments or questions from you folks that are watching out online? Any other comments? Because, when we come up every week, we typically like to keep these discussions to an hour because we understand that people, you all are into other things. You have other places that you may need to be. And so when people come back to watch the replay, we know that the attention span may not last more than 2 hours or more than an hour, right? And so we try to keep these videos short, right? So that you can get through it because the pull of the world is strong. And so there's always going to be something that pops up to distract you from what it is that is happening. All right. There's always something that's going to distract you from your learning process. There's something that is the enemy is always working. And so he knows when you start to move in a certain direction, he knows how to distract you and how to just drop a very small hint of doubt or fear in your spirit. And it's going to throw you off track. Okay. It is going to throw you off track. So you have to stay diligent and stay connected with us and stay connected to these calls, okay? All right, Mikael, any other closing thoughts? We're coming up on an hour. Now, I'm sorry, before you say that, here's the thing. You definitely want to stay connected. You're going to want to subscribe to the YouTube channel that you're watching. You're going to want to follow the TikTok channel that you're watching. Make sure you stay connected. That's key. And so you'll quickly find as you engage with our group that the way that we're moving about and the information that we're sharing is set apart from anything else that you're going to see out there. It really is set apart. All right. We are looking to create long lasting relationships. This is not just us. This isn't a one time thing. We're trying to create longevity because we really do need to have people that we can trust. Right. We really, really do. It's not short term. And we're not just going to throw you in the system and say, okay, here you have what you need, hit the ground running. No, we need trustees that we can trust because there are other things on the table, right? So this is why we need long-lasting relationships, but you all have to be educated so that we can do business the right way. You have to be educated for us to be able to take you to the next level. Okay. So, Mikael, any closing thoughts? Anything at all?
Well, at this point, you know, we're having a basic discussion. No matter what type of account it is, no matter what the legal situation you're dealing with, there's a way for you to win. Um, but for most people, they don't know what those steps are to win. Um, you really have to examine the information you may be receiving from all these different sources. If you're unsure, if it doesn't make sense, if they can't answer the why questions, and if you don't have any why questions, that could be the problem. But you should be able to ask your why questions and get a response that makes sense, that leads you to the next question, that leads you to the next step. Because the majority of people today are not moving in the right direction when it comes to court scenarios. They think they are, but they're not. And if you talk to enough people, you're going to find out that they were not successful. That means all that they did, everything that they thought they needed to do, they did, and they still did not work. Now, I'm not saying that some of the documents that they filed didn't make sense, but it took them in the wrong direction. You know, I've heard people say, well, I filed this, I did that. And I said, yeah, I like this and I like that. But there's still something missing. Your document shouldn't take you to the left when it should be taking you to the right in a different direction with a different perspective. And so that's what's going to set us apart from all those other people out there that you're going to talk to. It's going to say, oh, file this document, file that document. Why file this? Why file that? You need to ask the why questions. And what is this document going to do? How does it play in to me winning this court case? That's going to be important for you moving forward, that you ask the why questions. If they cannot answer the why question and it makes sense to you, put a pin in it and say, okay, I'm going to come back to that. I'm not 100% sold on that, but let me put a pin in this, because if it can't take me to a win And a win is not one win, it's always 3 wins. When you win a court case, it's 3 wins. Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans that I have for you. So you win today, tomorrow, and in the future. Today, tomorrow, and in the future. That's a 3-win scenario from Jeremiah 29:11. So when you do overcome and you are successful in a court case over any account, you should be able to see that you have overcome 3 separate times. What did you win the first time? What did you win the second? What does it look like in the future? That's going to be very important. I've heard several people say, and I'll say it as well, a dismissal is not a win. A court case is actually an accounting transaction. So if it is an accounting transaction, financial, and you got a dismissal, what happened to the accounting? You walked away from the accounting? What did you receive? Nothing? Oh, you got a dismissal? You think you won something? No, you lost. They gave you a dismissal, let you walk out the door, and they kept all the accounting. And if you don't know how important that is, come back to the next Genesis Gateway meeting, and we're going to be discussing a lot more.
That's right. We'll be here next week, same time. Right. And like I said earlier, we have 6 more sessions to go. So you definitely want to get connected while you can. On this particular platform, is 6 more sessions, but we have other calls that are happening. So if you all have not yet registered for the Noelle Prosecui weekly discussion, you want to go ahead and get the link for that. And those links are also circulating on social media. So again, just connect with the platform owner that you're currently watching from. We will make sure that you get those links, and you can also come underneath any of the videos on the channel and make a comment and send us your email address, and we'll go ahead and respond back to you that way as well. All right. So not only do we have the free course, Noelle Prosecui, there are other additional free courses on the platform that you can gain access to. Noelle Prosecui is just one of them, the winning court scenario. All right. So if you have a court case, or if you know someone else that has a court case, you want to get connected. But that is just the door opener for you to gain access to more free resources, right? So people, get connected, just get connected. Just get connected. That's pretty much all we can say. Just go ahead and get connected, because we would love to hear from you. We'd love to work with you, and just be prepared to take things to the next level. So we thank you all for joining the Genesis Gateway Roundtable discussion for this evening, discussing the financial woes of Babylon. Please join us again next week, same time, same platform, so that we can continue the discussions. In addition to that, I want you all to make sure that you are watching your emails and check your spam folders, because our emails do sometimes go to spam. They do go to spam for whatever reason, right? So just make sure that you're checking your spam folder. And if you see any email that's making reference to Genesis Gateway Roundtable discussions, Noelle Prosecui, when in court scenario, register for this free call, any notifications that says that we are going live, you know that that's us trying to communicate with you. And we're also sending out text messages as well. Okay. So just stay connected. And again, we do thank you all. We hope and pray that you all have a productive, prodigious, and prosperous week. And we will see you all next week on the next Genesis Gateway Roundtable discussion. You all have a great, 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 great evening. Shalom, everyone.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.